Yeah, good stuff.
Pretty
nice.
good.
Pretty nice, sir. Yeah,
I got that jam. That's me. I was mixing it up for you there with the turntables on the ones and twos. The ones and twos.
All right, coming up right here on this program right now on YouTube, it's the Buddy Martin Show with Brenden. Actually, Martin and Martin, we got a good show for you tonight. We're going to knock it down. Coming up right now in about 30 seconds, it's going to be Allie, Pete, Wilbur, and
I'm excited.
Yeah, you should be. She's always great. Of course, Ben Troop, and then our buddy David Moulton. Stay tuned. The Buddy Martin Show's on the air.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Hello, Allie.
Hello, how are you?
Oh,
Pete Wilbur, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys doing?
Nice to see you again, Allie. How you been?
I've been good. I took a little vacation with Eric, which was fun, and
nice.
Now school starts tomorrow, so I've been running around doing all the things.
Is that where it starts for you guys? For tomorrow for publics, like not public, but for a lot of schools start tomorrow. We don't start till next week.
We're public school in Hillsborough County, and everybody starts on August 10th. So there's probably going to be less traffic tomorrow morning, but all our kiddos go back to school.
Yay.
Well, we're having fun here on YouTube. We're just working out the kinks on our show. Brendan's done a great job. We have a couple of wrong things we have to change. I'm sure when you started out a long time before, you got to what, 4,000? There were
5,000 now. I'd say about close to 5,000.
We hit 5,000 subscribers today, which is
great. Congratulations. Great.
I pay attention.
So you gave away dinner or something to somebody, right?
We have some hats from Dome Hats that we're going to be giving away. Dome is owned by Chris Hetland. I don't know if you remember him, kicker on the 2016.
Do remember him. Yes, I do.
And then Jeff Whitaker as well, who was a holder for Florida. He was a quarterback that transferred in from Wake Forest, ended up as a holder, played under Spurrier and Zook. But they own a hat company out of Jacksonville and sent me some great Gator hats to give away. So I'll be doing that.
I always love to have Allie on because she has such a depth of knowledge. She can go old school or she can go new school, whatever one you want to do. And speaking of new school, we'll have to update some recruiting news here in a few minutes. But first, I just want to bellow out something right now. I'm really concerned. I know everybody's talking about the bad shape for college football, and there's been some weird things we know with the total collapse of out on the West Coast of that conference. Can't even remember the name of it anymore, Pac-12. But this is one today that really hit me. Now, listen to this, guys, and tell me, am I crazy? ESPN on Tuesday announced a 10-year deal with Penn Entertainment, all right, a casino company, to create an online sports betting brand called ESPN Bet. Catapulting the sports entertainment network into the lucrative world of gambling. They need every dollar they can get, and now they've hit it. You can't, hey, you coaches and players, don't you go out there betting on this. But meanwhile, ESPN, the godfather of college football, owns a betting service with a casino. Allie, I don't know.
I don't love it. I just, I don't love that I'm getting my news from somebody who has some sort of vested interest in the outcome of these games. That doesn't feel right. I don't have a problem with some of these apps and things for gambling in the states that it's legal, but I have a real problem with ESPN being involved in it.
We're talking where all the money comes from to finance college football.
Yeah.
And they're digging for dollars right now because, let's be honest, and I'm going to shut up, let you and Brenden weigh in on this, but the money comes from us, and we subscribe to ESPN, all the packages they make us subscribe to. They have, we got to get all these other apps and stuff. And now they are getting into the business of betting the pool of money that they need to pay these exorbitant prices that we're paying for college football and the gazillion dollars they're getting, which is good. But you know what? It all starts with us and the guy or girl turning on the TV switch and subscribing. What if everybody doesn't subscribe to ESPN anymore? What happens to that pool of money? I mean, it's a dangerous thing, Allie.
Yeah, I mean, the hard thing is that there would have to be so many people that agreed to boycott ESPN for it to make a huge difference. Otherwise, it's just you sitting at home not watching your college football games. But I mean, we've seen with recent boycotts, you know, in other industries that they do work if orchestrated correctly. But I don't know. This doesn't sit right with me. Like I said, I don't have any issue with some of the gambling with college football that takes place. I just think that this is like, you know, your news organizations having betting sites for outcomes in political races or something like that. Like if this is where we're getting our unbiased information from, they should not be in any way tied to the outcomes of these games.
I believe it's called conflict of interest. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they have to boycott, but business models change and business change. I used to work for a newspaper. Remember them? You know, 30 years ago, there were some good papers paying good salaries. It was a great time. They're gone away now. Things change. So I guess ESPN has got to dip into the pockets of somebody else to get the money they need to pay the rights, Brenden, to get it on the air.
Sorry, I was making a bet with ESPN.
Right.
Excuse me. Sorry, I was going to get that out really quick. I mean, come on.
You're legal. You can do it.
Dude, it's obvi. It's really bad. It's not a good idea. It's like when, you know, Vegas started getting professional sports teams. Like, you know, it was just like, this. I mean, how many stories we heard of now that come out? Referees for years have been, you know, gambling from, you know, all these different things. Gambling is like drugs. It's like addiction. It's like anything else. It's like people are going to make bad decisions, you know, when they go out and get hammered, and then, you know, like it's too close. It's like it's like my mother used to always tell me, if you want to lose weight, don't go to the bakery, right? So end of the day, it's like, I just think it suggests too much. It's too big of an entity. ESPN's I used to work for these guys. You know, like it's too many moving parts. It's too easy to gamble, and I think it's a state of desperation for ESPN. I think that's showing that they are trying to hold on. Like we just saw them lay off 450 people. You know, not that many, I'm joking, but I'm saying, you know, they're retooling their business model, and they're trying to get into the, you know, those fan duels and all that stuff. That's the game that they're trying to get a piece of that money.
Meanwhile, Barstool Sports got out of business.
What?
Which was, you know, I mean, not my favorite site, but they were making all the money, and now their stock is worth nothing. So now they picked it up for pittance. Penn did, and now that business is owned by ESPN, and the casino bet ESPN or ESPN bet. Okay, I'm sorry, I got enough to complain about. I had to get that in there, and we'll see. Allie, let's talk some football. All right,
let's do it.
I want to get your latest take on the recruiting situation, but here's a question I want to raise. Brenden, you were on the show last night. We had a conversation with David Whitley about this. We rated the various groups on the team, and David had made a comment earlier in the week about the fact he thought the offensive line might not be one of the best units. And I forget his exact words, Brenden, but it's like he didn't think there would be one of the – he thought he was concerned about it. I immediately shot back. I thought it was one of the strengths of the team. So let me throw that open. Today, by the way, Micah Magzuka, by the way, was no longer wearing a non-contact jersey. Yeah. So that's a good news. Yeah. So tell me about the offensive line, Allie. How do you see it?
So, you know, I spend a lot of time talking with Shannon Snell, who obviously All-American offensive lineman. He is super pumped about what Florida has on the offensive line, and honestly feels like it's more deep than it was last season. So maybe doesn't have quite the big name stars, but that they are actually going to be able to withstand the hits that they take for longer into the game. They're going to have fresh legs in the fourth quarter. There's going to be bodies available more readily than they were last season. And I feel like that is huge, right? I think, and he thinks it's going to be a position of strength. And honestly, when we're talking offensive line, that's kind of who I defer to in that realm, because he knows exactly what he's talking about. And I think this is something that, a lot of fans walked away from the open practice talking about as well, like how big Florida's offensive line was, how deep they were, how balanced the offensive line looked going against the defensive line. And those are all good things. Those all mean that this line is coming around the way that Billy wants it to. And I do think offensive line will be a strength for Florida.
I saw your report. Very good, but it's very solid, very thorough. Brenden did a pretty good job too. Went out and covered it and talked to some people, and he had some of the same observations that you did. Size is they're big suckers, I can tell you that. Well, Here's what everybody I talked to has said the same thing about the offensive line. They are really impressed. First of all, Rob Sale, I mean, he's not exactly chopped liver. He was the offensive line coach for the New York Giants, and Darnell Stable as well. And the guys we've heard from, Allie, the people we've talked with, the players, the ones who came here, because there were 2 offensive line coaches, really more about like 5, but there are 2, and they love that they're going to get coached. So, and the other thing I'm going to mention is I love this quote here from Mark Hockey the other day. He said, Micah Mazuka, he's a bare-knuckle brawler. He's got something in his neck. He's tough. He's physical, plays the game the right way, got a little nasty to him. He's a guy you don't want to run into in a back alley. I think he's going to play that physical type of game up front. I like that kind of guy.
All things you want to hear about your offensive lineman. And Mike Mazuka coming back is a huge piece to the puzzle, particularly depth-wise. So, that's really, really good news. But that's exactly what you want, right? You want your offensive line to have a mean and nasty streak in them.
Exactly right. 6'5", 329. France talks about it a lot. All the way across. They're all monster. They got guys 6'8", 380. I mean, they're huge.
This is the biggest line Florida's had in as long as I can remember.
I don't even remember a line this big. Now, everything's relative, but it looks like if size doesn't matter, yes, that would be it. Now, talk about your report. It was very solid, very thorough. You had a lot of positives to take away after practice, after that open practice.
I think that there was a lot of good things. I think that the freshmen were a particularly impressive group, which I think that bodes well, right? That's huge for Napier, because these are guys that he went out and recruited and he brought in. I think it shows that he's a really good evaluator of talent. And I think it shows that if people can be patient, then he's going to move the ship in the right direction. Jordan Castile is somebody Castell really stood out. Dejon Johnson, Jakeem Jackson, all of them had really, really good pass breakups. I've heard really good things about Jordan Castile, and that coaches are really impressed with him. They think that he's playing above where he was graded last year as a recruit. So somebody to keep an eye on for sure. Najee Harris looked really good in one-on-ones against the D-line. He's an offensive lineman. So that, part of that depth piece there. Even Treyon Webb, D-Webb's son, who is going to be the 4th-string running back this year, he looked really good. He's a bruiser. Definitely does not look like he should be, that he just walked across the stage at high school, right, for graduation. So I think freshmen in general were a group that were just impressive overall. And then I think wide receivers. I think Ricky Pearsall, who didn't actually practice in that practice, but so we've heard has been having a really good camp so far. I think that's another position that might surprise people a little bit. We know that running backs are a strength. We know that offensive line is a strength. Outside of that, I don't know that we know for sure a whole lot of anything, but I do think wide receiver is a place that we could surprise some people. And I think Khalil Jackson is somebody that is going to have some opportunities. He was the walk-on that was just scholarship. That made him, by the way, he's a third generation player family.
I know, that's great, isn't it?
Which, I think is really, really cool. Caleb Douglas, Marcus Burke, those are guys that impressed. we had some good DBs. Jason Marshall Jr., yes, and Jalen Kimber, both of them looked really good. So I think that there was a lot to be impressed about. There was a lot to be hopeful about. Now, does this mean Florida's going to run the table and be in the SEC championship game? No, absolutely not. But I think if you watched that practice, you walked away going, okay, this team might be a little bit better than we were expecting them to be.
Yeah. I said last night, let's don't get wishful thinking, carry us away. But I mean, I'm hearing so many positive things about this team.
Shane Matthews said this morning he's adjusting his win totals to 9 games, which I mean, I think 9 is super lofty. I'm not prepared to jump to 9. Also, Shane's has seen a whole lot more than I have seen. So that at least, that tells you something.
Well, we do a show with Shane a couple times a week, and I've deferred to him. I say, on matters of quarterback, I know a tiny bit about it. Played in high school, I've watched it, but this guy knows quarterbacks. If he tells me Graham Mertz is going to be fine, he likes him, he's okay, I'm going with Shane on that one. And then we had Urban on the show. Like I told you before, we asked him about when he recruited him. He said he liked Mertz a lot. He had him up Columbus. He wanted him. He was smart. He thought he was mechanically sound, a leader. And he said, of course, we know that Nick Saban liked him because he had him down there in Tuscaloosa. Yeah. So how did this guy start 32 games and not be any good? Tell me that.
Well, that's the thing, is that you don't hang on to a guy for 32 starts if he's not at least decent, right? You have somebody on your roster that you can start above him if he is as bad as some of the national media would lead you to believe. I think he will be fine. We've said this 100 times, you and I, on these Wednesday night shows, but he doesn't have to be a superstar. He needs to manage games. He just needs to not lose Florida games. But I don't believe that you are this highly recruited guy that all the top minds in college football want out of high school, and you're a complete dud in college. I don't believe that. I think he wasn't in the right system. He wasn't necessarily developed the right way. Like, I think that there are a lot of things that you can point to, but I don't actually think it's lack of talent.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, so tell me what you heard about recruiting lately, okay?
Well, I have heard that we have someone that should pop very, very soon. I kind of expected this person to have already announced, but they hadn't. But I heard very close to the start of their high school season. So, we're talking just a couple weeks. We should have some good news there. There's very few spots left on this team. Florida is probably about 85% shored up with their class, maybe closer to 90%. I mean, they've got guys like DJ Lagway, they've got Phil Simi, they've got Aaron Childs. Obviously, Miles Graham was the very first one in this class. There's a lot of big names in this class and very few spots left. Jamari Howard is one that we're still watching. His recruitment is very much an enigma. I don't know what it's going to come down to because he doesn't say a whole lot and he hasn't traveled a whole lot. So I don't know that we'll know anything on him until much further into the season. I think a lot of people I saw in your comments are really interested in the guys from mainland, and that would be LJ McCray.
Yeah. He asks every week, by the way. It's okay.
Yeah, well, LJ McCray and Zay Mincy, and those are guys that UF is really high on. I know that Georgia's pushing really, really hard for McCray, and Alabama's pushing really, really hard for Mincy. Those are two schools that are very, very difficult to go up against and win. I think that if we get one, it helps us with the other. I've heard that they're pretty strong Florida leans, but since they haven't popped yet, and we kind of expected them to, I don't know what that means, but we have so few spots left that if they do want to hop in, they are going to have to jump on the train soon because it's leaving the station. There's just no seats left.
That's right. Now it's not like you can't wait around. Now you got to make a commitment pretty quick. I see the backwards F on your helmet. We must have you mirrored. No, it's because it's us. When you push the button, I did the same thing. My Gator Bait hat last night said, "True, we're gonna go." It was backwards.
He's a stickler for details, out there. He doesn't miss a thing. This guy.
Yeah. Who won? Well, I know she's very proud of that picture of her grandfather back there. I'm proud of it too.
It's backwards. Wear your helmet today. That's what it is. Yeah, there you go.
I found out when you log on and you push the button and it says mirror the image, take that off and it'll be fine. I'm learning. Okay. Brendan's done a great job on, hey, listen, Brenden, tell them about what to do about Allie gave us a great example to follow. How do people get involved here and get subscribed?
Well, as I'm getting my YouTube lingo going on, if you're watching on YouTube tonight, and you are, because we're not streaming anywhere else, smash the subscribe button for us. But, yes. Yeah, you got to say smash. That's what they say.
Yes,
you got to smash the subscribe button. All right. You got to punch it.
Come on, smash it.
Yeah, because my kid watches YouTube all day, and that's what they say when they get on. So, and I'm a young guy, so what do you know?
Can we go hear from our sponsor real quick, and then we're going to bring Ben Troop in and have a discussion, Allie. Today, more news about Notre Dame talking about the possibility of the ACC and pushing hard for Stanford and Cal to join them. This thing is getting crazier every day. Plus, Brett McMurphy's got a top 10. Let's take a break here from Melon Law. Well, Allie, stay right there. We'll come back. We'll bring Ben Troop in. I've always said if I come back, I want to come back as this guy, Jeffrey Moulton. He has this grueling profession, yet he has so much fun all the time. Jeffrey, it seems like you're either going off on a road trip with the Gator football team, or you're dancing with the stars, or something, trying out for the Gator band. That's what you need to do, get in that Gator band.
Well, the secret is, buddy, I model myself after you.
Yeah, well, that means it lasts about a half an hour and you're done. That's it for me. But seriously, you've always got a good smile on your face, and you're happy, and you love people. I've seen you a lot of times. It is possible to have fun in life and still deal with the stress, right?
Yes, I think one of the keys is surrounding yourself with a team that does the things that you don't want to do or you're not good at. And so that's really one of the things that we focus in on at Meldon Law is having a team approach where I may be good at one thing and somebody else may do something else better. So, and that really relates to football as well, right?
Right. I looked at your roster just a few minutes ago. You've got quite a roster, starting with Jeffrey at the top and Kerry and on down, quite a staff. So it is a team approach, and Meldon Law's been doing it well for a long time and will be doing it well. So if you need legal help, go see them. They'll take care of your business. And if you don't know what kind of law you need, Jeffrey and his team will tell you what kind of law you need. Right, Jeffrey?
Yeah, well, look, our primary focus is on accidents and injuries. However, as a service to the community, if you need a real estate lawyer or will done or whatever, we have a list of folks that we vetted to do a good job. So give us a call.
And have a good time doing it like he does. Jeffrey Meldon, Meldon Law, they won't back down. All right, thanks very much. We're joined by, wait a minute, hold it. There's a different looking dude on here I haven't seen before. Some kind of hat. At least it doesn't have an A on it. That's good.
Well, yeah, no.
Yes,
it
no,
does have an
we
A
can't
on it.
see
Yeah.
that. We don't.
Yes,
no,
you can. This is about winners.
Now listen,
We're talking about
be
winners.
nice.
We really have to let him on now? Is that, come on, man.
That's on his contract. I'm
Come
going
on,
to say,
man.
I can't help it. Let's let Allie decide.
Don't make me do that, guys. Come on now.
Allie knows that when you listen, the Atlanta Braves, everybody was Braves fans. You're not a real Tampa Bay Rays fan, buddy. That's not real. They're not even in Tampa. They're in St. Pete.
Wow. Shots fired.
I got news for you, pal. The Braves are in Marietta, so don't give me that crap, okay? They're not in Atlanta. They're in Marietta, okay?
Marietta is a suburb of Atlanta. That's Atlanta?
No, they're not. They're their own town, Marietta. So don't give me that stuff about that, all right? Anyway.
Oh, so you do know where the Braves are at. You do know where they're located.
Well, I can't help it. It's all over your show all the time. That's all I hear about, the Braves.
Oh,
hey, listen, get down to something more serious here. I want to talk to you guys for a second about something. We said earlier we're concerned about this new thing with ESPN. What is it, Bet ESPN? Now they're in bed with the casino? I mean, Ben, come on, man. That's the Fox watching the hen house there, I think. And the other thing is, today there was a tweet out on Notre Dame is pushing hard for the ACC to add Stanford and Cal. What do y'all think about that? Let's start with Alec and then get your take.
I think the interesting thing about all of this is nobody ever thinks about the athletes when they think about all of the conference realignment. And I know that at the end of the day, it's about money and it's unrealistic to think that people would put the needs of, the student athletes that all of this is built around at the forefront. But think about when they join a conference, they're not just joining for football, which has the money to fly them across the country, feed them the good meals, put them in the hotels. They're thinking about softball they're not thinking about softball that's going to get in a, tour bus essentially and drive across the country, or the baseball team, or the women's lacrosse or track team and when you think about what it would do to these schools on the West Coast to have to travel to the East Coast, think about softball plays sometimes 2 or 3 games a week or 3 games in a weekend or whatever, what that does for them when you add the travel time, when you're combining conferences from 2 different coasts. It affects football the least because they have the most. And I don't know, it's frustrating. There is no thought about the people that make all of this money for the universities, and that's the student athletes.
Ben.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think sometimes, too, when all this thing about amateurism first come out, everybody was trying to make it seem as if they was doing a certain model. You can't – first they said you can't have alcohol in the stadiums. They can do that now. Then they said you can't bet. Now ESPN is putting it out. Yes, we're going to do it. Yeah. We're that much closer to revenue sharing. I'm not saying it's going to be an easy push, but – you don't have dumb athletes that don't understand their worth and what they mean to these universities and college now. And the thing about it is, even with the whole Notre Dame and Stanford thing, Notre Dame was trying to say, hey, we don't like the ACC. Now, if you let Cal and Stanford, which I don't know if that boosts the reputation of the ACC, they're trying to throw their weight around. If the ACC can't get Notre Dame to honor their contract and play every sport outside, not named football, I mean, I don't see why you would even because people are looking at the ACC. So we got Miami versus Cal at Cal. That's a long flight, just to play a football game. I just don't. Geographically, most of these conferences don't matter anymore, especially when Mizzou is in the SEC. But you got to think about the student athlete from this standpoint. Most of these young men and young women are using sport as a vehicle to get through school now. I mean, you mean to tell me now with the betting and the $1 billion budgets going into these facilities that we got to use NIL as a means to really benefit these young people? I'll never understand it, but I do agree with Allie. Stop letting people who have nothing to do with the sport make the rules for it. That doesn't make any sense. That's like, look, if I want to be a pilot, I'm gonna go talk to a former pilot. You're talking to people that's never played the sport, never really been around the sport, saying, hey, man, can it make money? Well, of course it can make money, but to the expense of what? The football and basketball take care of most of the other sports. Problem is, these other sports, they're going to suffer from this stuff. Because like I said, I like the direction of college athletics. I just don't like the people pushing the buttons behind the scenes.
Yeah, Deion said something earlier in the weekend, but Deion says something – sometimes people scoff at him, but he made a comment about it's about the money. He knew that a long time ago. Everything in college football is about the money. Like you said, everybody wants to get their bag, right? And we're in this society where the premium is on money, 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 money. Everybody wants to make a buck. I have nothing against capitalism, but don't you have to have some core values? That's right. Why. Do you have that bite there, Brenden? That's why I love this bite from Billy talking about being a truth teller. You got to go back to core values at some point. I know you're going to have the money issue and all that's always going to be there, but the coach has got to be the mouthpiece. He's got to say, here's what we're about. This is what Billy said.
I really like this team, and I respect their approach to accountability. We talk about telling each other the truth. And being consistent in that, living the truth, telling the truth, and being able to take the truth, right? And ultimately, this group's in a good place. We've got some leadership that has developed, and I think the personality of this group is in a good place. So
I like
really
telling the truth and taking the truth. That's really good right there.
Truth teller.
Truth tellers, yeah.
Buddy Martin.
I wish we had others.
He does. He got to say, I give Buddy a lot of crap, but the one thing about his whole career is that the guy's been ethical. He's been honest. And that's hard to say when you've worked in the industry for and had the pedigree that he has. To be in the situation he's been in, as we see now, it's more transparent now. It's more about money. It was always about that. We just didn't hear about it as much now. But being in the media and all that stuff, he doesn't just say that. He really believes that and lives that. And
where's that got me? Nowhere. Right.
I got you on this show, man.
Yeah, thank you, Brenden.
I think that it's gotten you a lot of places. Honestly.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It got you pretty much over 150 awards in journalism, and this far from the Pulitzer, that far from the Pulitzer, National Emmy Award, not some regional Emmy, a National Emmy Award. Writes books for Terry Bradshaw, Urban Meyer, Stephen Orr Spurrier, and by the way, a lot of people don't know this, and Dan Issel, which was one of the great basketball players, of our time. That's just that we're just getting started, and not to mention being on the New York Times bestseller list. And oh, by the way, managing editor and lead columnist for about 5 major newspapers before there was this cool thing called YouTube. So.
And there's checks in the mail that wanted to become sports writers and journalists because you paved the way.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. I appreciate that very much. Well, anyway, it's great to be here tonight with you guys. I love being a part of new things happening. And Allie, you have set the curve and what you've done. I'm so proud of you. And Ben, you know what I think of you. It's an honor for me to be able to be in your lives in a small way, and I mean that. And this is what I thrive on. This is why I've lived to be an old man, because I had such young people I got to work with and watch them grow and watch them go on and do things. And both of you got an enormous amount of talent. Okay, enough of that. Let's go to this. Today's top 10. We got David Moulton coming here in about 5 minutes. Brett McMurphy has his top 10. Listen to what jumps out at you here. Ready? I'll start with 10. 10 Clemson, 9 Oregon, 8 Penn State, 7 Washington, 6 LSU, 5 Alabama, 4 Ohio State, 3 Florida State, 2 Michigan, 1 Georgia. All right, what's wrong with that picture?
I mean, when I think about that top 10, the two things that stand out is returning quarterbacks and traditional rich systems. I think when we know that Clemson's, I can't even say DJ Uiagalelei, that experiment didn't work, but Clemson, they the tops in the ACC. Florida State got a lot of talent coming back. Georgia seems to be the team to beat right now. Alabama, while you don't know what they're going to have at quarterback, they still Alabama. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with this list. I mean, the one thing I can't say is this though: if you don't think there's some recency bias, aka Michigan, I know they got a good team coming back, right? And I know that Harbaugh is the greatest thing since sliced bread since he finally beat Ohio State after 9 years, under the helm. I just think that all these teams got, veteran quarterbacks coming back, got guys that's been in the system, and I really have no problem with it. I mean, you know how it is, buddy. You got to have top 10 matchups week 1. We got a top 10 matchup week 1 or a top 25 matchup week 1. And I know that Florida got some votes, not to be in the top 10, but top 25. I like it when no one's talking about Florida. That's when we are at our best. I don't care about no preseason, this and that. But what's the quarterback out there, Houston Rising, whatever his name is? I know he can throw from the waist up, but they won't show the waist down. Usually when you throw, I can see his whole body. So the cameraman makes sure he's chest level. We'll see what happens come week 0 though. Hopefully. Whether he's in there or not in there, I think Coach Armstrong.
You're breaking up there, Ben, so I'll let you go after this. Georgia won, doesn't it? Allie, FSU 3? But that'll be decided early because LSU and FSU play 3 versus 6 right off the bat. We'll know something, right, Allie?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't hate this. I kind of love all the pressure on FSU and none of the pressure on Florida. I am with Ben. I despise. I don't think that polls should exist until about week 6. We have no idea what we're doing. We're literally just throwing darts at the wall at this point for a preseason. But if we're going to do that, might as well put all the pressure on Florida State and none of the pressure on us. But you're right. They play LSU week 1. So more than likely, they're not in this top 10 after that game happens. And then they don't play anybody until they play Clemson. So it's easy to look at this list and see how FSU and Clemson could be up there because their schedules are pretty easy outside of the opening weekend. I think Alabama and LSU make sense where they are. I don't really know a whole lot about what Nick Saban has outside of the fact that it's what Nick Saban has. So they're good and they need to be up there. Michigan is totally recency bias. I agree 100% with Ben on that, but they also don't play a whole lot of teams. And so they're going to look good probably until, pretty close to the end when they play Ohio State, because that's the way the schedule is set up for them. The SEC is at a disadvantage in the fact that they beat each other up week in and week out, but they're at an advantage when the playoffs come because they're better than everybody else because they're more battle tested. So, there's no real shockers on this. I don't think. I do think FSU is a little bit high, but again, I'm all for that. Give them all the pressure.
All right, good stuff, Alec. Ben, we're going to say goodnight to you. We won't have a Orange and Blue show tomorrow night. Well, we got ceremonies planned here, and you have a good week, Ben. We'll be back at it next week, and good stuff as always. All right, Ben True.
Always a pleasure being on with your buddy Alec, Brenden. Love a new platform. And like I say, buddy, at the end of the day, look back in your closet, dust off your real fan base.
Get him off the air. Get him off the air.
All right. Goodbye, Ben. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ben.
That's really an A for Alabama. I believe we're going to read this spot real fast. And David Moulton, it's time for Sweet and Sour. That's what they call this show now. Sweet and Sour. Who do you think is the sour? We'll find out. All right. I want to tell you about Titan MRI. It's worth the drive to Gainesville. No insurance, no problem. You can pay with cash or card with the same-day scheduling available. Start feeling better today because Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier independent MRI facility. Come see why hundreds of patients are visiting our Gainesville location from Ocala, Marion County, and the Villages. That's TitanMRI.com. Let's say good evening to David Moulton. He would be the sour. What's up, David?
How is everybody tonight?
Good, David. How you doing?
I'm good.
Allie has been regaling us with stories here. She has a backward F on her football helmet for reasons not our fault because of the mirror image that we have here. But hey, the new format's going to be great.
Hi, David. How are you doing, Mr. Moulton?
Good, Brenden. How are you?
Good. I'm enjoying your show, by the way. I've been listening to it a bunch. I am enjoying your show quite a bit. And I have a couple of my buddies are big fans of yours, and they wanted me to give you a shout out. So.
Well, very appreciative of that. We've made a presentation to the station in Gainesville. We'll get an answer next week as to whether they'll carry the show or not.
Well,
hope they do.
Moulton and Moulton.
Miller and Moulton.
Yeah, Miller and Moulton. But I like Moulton.
Could be Moulton and Moulton. I don't know.
Well, Martin and Martin. That's what I'm saying. Martin. I got a lot of things going on here.
You
okay?
do. You
got
do.
A lot of things happening.
Well, let's get this out right now before we get into the issue of Sankey yesterday talking about expansion and all the things that have happened this week. We know it's been crazy stuff. David, we talked about this when we came on the air. The news that ESPN announced a 10-year deal with Penn Entertainment casino company to create an online sports betting brand called ESPN Bet. I don't know. I guess you probably don't have a problem with that, but I do.
Why?
Because it's getting too close to the business. Look, they find coaches and players for betting, and now the gambling money is going to help them pay the bill to get these rights fees paid. I just think we're turning a blind eye to things that will cause us problems down the road, and I just don't think it's a good idea. And it's one more weird thing that's happened this year that just, Allie, do you agree or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a conflict of interest, as Buddy said before you came on. I want the people that are reporting the news to remain neutral and unbiased. And I don't know how you own a betting site and you remain neutral and unbiased, particularly when headlines cause lines to change. It doesn't feel right.
Fox had a betting book if you will. They had a sports book for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now they just shelved it, but Fox has had it for at least the last 3 years, maybe even since before the pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, didn't love that either. I don't know. I don't have a problem with betting on college athletics. I don't have a problem with the apps that are in states where it's legal or whatever else. It feels too close to home. I would like my news sources to remain unbiased.
And Allie, to me, the problem is that there are no more morals and standards involved in big-time college athletics. I mean, the TV networks are now determining how college athletics are truly going to be. They're the ones picking and choosing which schools are going into which conferences. Yep. I mean, they are. I mean, even what Greg Sankey said yesterday. He said, 16 is right for us. We really don't see anybody right now. But if somebody can, bring pro rata, which basically means if ESPN will pay the going rate, we'll take them. Right. Okay. So, there are no more standards. I mean, let's just, this is all about money. This is a greedy mess with universities on the front of jerseys and on the sides of helmets.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right there.
But I think to draw any sort of moral line right now, to me, is laughable. I mean, it really is.
I don't think it's a moral line. It's a question. It's a question.
No, buddy, you're right. Oh, no, buddy and Allie. Oh, my goodness. You're 400% right. Yeah. But the lines, they haven't been, this is a clay tennis court in which all the lines are now missing from it. It's just clay. Yeah. And you have no idea if the ball is in or out now. I mean, it's a total mess.
Good description. I like that.
It is what it is.
Well, I think, I was, I commented on it a second ago and not, echoing what these guys said, but you make a really good point. I mean, in the world of online and everywhere else, it is, it's everywhere. I mean, we blurred the lines in sports a long time ago when owners started owning the teams, right? And then we continue to go that sort of route. Now, you got FanDuel, online betting, where you have, it is everywhere. Like I said, you got professional sports in Vegas. It's sort of hard to avoid. I guess if ESPN wants to get involved, why are they any more demonized than anybody else?
Because they're funding some of what they're doing to get college conferences and deals with gambling money. That's the thing that bothers me about it. So anyway.
Well, but what about so what about the collectives? I mean, what about,
collectives have a different. Collectives are raising money for the schools. So
yeah, they're clean as sugar. They're clean as a whistle.
Clean. All fundraising. Sure. Listen, nobody said it was clean. Sure. Never said that. I mean, yeah. Anyway, but not get stuck on that. Let's go back and talk about what Sankey did say yesterday. Were you surprised? He said very clear there is not something out there to engage with about expansion. You believe him, David?
Listen, I really don't think the Big Ten. Name me one person in the Big Ten who wanted Oregon and Washington. Have you heard one person in the Big Ten say they wanted those schools? I don't believe there's anyone in the SEC. For as much as Florida State and Clemson actually bring to the table, I don't think there's anyone in the SEC that wants to go beyond 16. I think most people in the SEC accept the fact that if ESPN decides they want to start bringing some more teams into the conference, it's going to happen. But Allie, do you know anyone? I mean, first off, come on, let's be honest. How could anyone associated with the Florida Gators want Florida State in the same conference? I mean, come on.
I think it's good for college football.
You're your rival. You hate them.
No, I'd like to see it for one reason. I wrote a column about proximity, how important it's going to become. All the issues we've talked about with the student athlete. And proximity is a big thing to sell these days, Allie. If you've got a kid going to school somewhere because their parents can see the games and suddenly they're flying across the country, they can't see them, it makes a big difference in recruiting. Proximity to the SEC is a lifesaver. If you want to think about it, if everybody's going to expand, I mean, I'm not big fan of the FSU program, but FSU and Clemson would fit right into this. I'm a lone voice on this. Nobody agrees with me, but I'm saying think about what the game is, what the athletes are, the traveling involved. Anything you can do to bring proximity to football, Allie, I think is a good thing.
I mean, I think that the long term down the road, we're going to be looking at 4 super conferences, and they probably are regional. In the way that we, divide up the country into quarters, essentially. I don't want the SEC to expand. I don't think that there's a need now. I don't think that there's money for it to warrant it at the moment. That doesn't mean that there won't be. If we head towards super conferences, I mean, I think FSU and Clemson do make sense in terms of proximity, far more than like adding some West Coast team that doesn't fit into the culture of the SEC. But no, I don't have any interest in it. I didn't have any interest in adding Texas and Oklahoma. I was totally good at 14. And to be honest with you, I was probably really just good at 12. But here we are. And where we sit currently, we are the toughest conference by far. And now we're about to add 2 teams that are perennially in the top 10 with Texas and with Oklahoma, really strong historical programs that are just going to make the conference that much harder. But I don't love the concept of 20-team conferences because I think it waters down the matchups. It waters down the rivalries. It waters down traditional college football. But I do think that that's the way that we're all going. I just think they're waiting for a new TV contract before it can happen.
David, you started this.
Well, to me, you don't need Florida State in the same conference as Florida because they play in every sport anyway. So you don't need them to join the conference in order to play them. But Buddy and Allie, I'm with you guys. Listen, I really wish we could have it. We've got 11 Division I schools in the state of Florida. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, in about 15 sports, they should all just be playing each other.
I agree. Why not?
To be honest with you. I mean, honestly, it doesn't mean they can't play outside, but I would love for there to be more in-state games and less travel involved, particularly in non-revenue generating sports, et cetera. But, I mean, now the fact that, New Brunswick and Los Angeles are going to host, games against one another in the Big Ten is just, I mean, can't wait for USC volleyball to travel to Maryland and Rutgers for two matches in 48 hours.
What do you guys think of the idea? Excuse me, Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, and generally they're used to traveling by bus because they don't even get the airfare, which will be interesting to see because football covers all of the non-revenue sports in 95% of the colleges we're talking about anyway. But those costs are going to skyrocket when they join a conference that requires them to travel across the country.
Well, Allie, the last minute hitch apparently in Oregon and Washington joining the Big Ten was Washington said, guys, it's $10 million extra in travel costs. The money you're offering us isn't enough. And apparently Fox had to throw more money on the pile for Oregon and Washington to finally say, okay, we're in.
Right. I mean, it's not, those are real costs. None of those sports, as much as we love women's softball and we love watching gymnastics and all of these other things, they don't make money. They cost the university money. So then when you make them have to travel clear across the country, that has real effects, not only financially, but it does on the time that the student athletes are away from the classroom. It does. I mean, football is the only one that it affects less because they're going to take that chartered flight and they're going to get served that nice meal and they're going to have the tutors with them. But that doesn't apply to literally any other sport.
All right. So why not secede? Football secede and go on their own and let the rest of the sports do it. I've heard that proposed. Rick Pitino was one of the first to say it. Does that make sense, David, Brenden, Allie?
I think it does. I think we saw a little bit of it. I mean, the difference in revenue is so massive, so we see UAAs and we see these other entities sort of develop. So, it's kind of, a lot of these bigger schools, it's like that already. It's not like, the football team is equally getting allocated the same amount of money as the soccer team. That's why they created a difference. So I think we're already in that sort of space. Why not go down that path? But I mean, then you're fracturing then when you're fracturing the team off the schools, then they have different standards for classroom, then they have different standards for a lot of different things. I mean, but again, like to David's point about gambling with ESPN, I mean, you're already there. You got to have to do something. There's no way you can say I'm going to travel to Oregon from Florida and it's the soccer and softball team is going to go do that.
Did everybody hear what Chip Kelly said yesterday?
No,
kind of flippantly. He said, so let me get this straight. Notre Dame is an independent in football, but they're in the ACC and everything else. Now, they are in the Big Ten in hockey, but all their other sports are in the ACC. He said, why can't we all be like that? He goes, why can't we all be independent in football? Okay, but then just kind of we all decide to play regionally, but then we all are a member of a conference in all the other sports. And he said,
who governs those things then? I mean, I know Notre Dame's, I guess, Board of Regents or whatever kind of makes decisions for them. But I mean, we've made decisions. Think about COVID, where conferences determined who was going to play and what the schedule was going to be. What would have happened then if we had just been 116 or 119, however many teams of independents at that point? All hell would have broken loose.
It's socialism. It's socialism because ask Vandy. I mean, look what would Vandy do? I mean, Vandy, I remember when Beto Cook told me 15 years ago, do you believe that Vanderbilt will make more money on their contract than Notre Dame does NBC? You know, that's why, because Vanderbilt would be flopping around. Maybe Vanderbilt doesn't deserve to be in there. I don't know. I think they're trying to start their own little Ivy League. They're talking about bringing Cal and Stanford in the ACC, you know, with Duke and all those people. All right, so in the remaining time we got left, I'd like to ask you guys about how important tradition is. We know it's been trampled on. We know we're going to lose some tradition. We know games not going to be played. Here's a couple of things that I talked about yesterday. Maybe not all that important, but did you hear the news about Bobby Dodd Stadium? Who was Bobby Dodd? Okay, Bobby Dodd was a world famous football coach, and for a long time was one of the greats in the business. The University of Georgia name change. University System, of Georgia, approved the name change of Bobby Dodd Stadium as part of a multi-deal partnership between Georgia Tech and Hyundai. $55 million over 20 years for naming rights. Yellow Jackets will now play at Bobby Dodd Stadium at Hyundai Field. How do you feel about that?
I'm sorry. I can't get worked up about this.
Now, if they making a point about tradition,
if they had taken Bobby Dodd's name off of the stadium or field, I'd get very bent out of shape about it.
Okay, you're okay with it.
Right? But if they're just, listen, there was a time when golf tournaments, it was the Bob Hope Desert Classic, it was the Bing Crosby, and then it became the AT&T, Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and so I don't know. With everything that's going on, buddy, in sports, if we're going to get bent out of shape about that, I mean, we're just going to sound like
raised the question.
We're just going to sound like Clint Eastwood sitting on his porch in Gran Torino all the time.
Nothing wrong with him, by the way. Allie, I'll give you your 2 cents worth. I got another one after that. You have any concern about that?
I have major concerns with traditions being destroyed in college football. That's not one that really moves the needle.
That's good enough. How about this one? Here's a new thing they've added back.
Wait,
you might like it.
I didn't get it. You guys, I think it. I mean, it doesn't matter. We've already sold to the devil on every other thing. Hey, if it can get those softball teams out there and everything else and pays for it, I guess why not? Like we make the tour buses or the buses and the planes like NASCAR. Maybe that's a way to pay for everything. Whatever it's good. It doesn't matter anymore.
Okay, some tradition has survived. Listen to this one. First time in 6 years, Auburn will allow rolling of Auburn Oaks at Toomer's Corner this fall. The school had stopped the tradition after 2 new trees were planted in 2017. Remember, they were poisoned. Now Auburn has determined the oaks are established enough for the tradition of the return. I know it means nothing to us, but it's a big thing for Auburn fans. One more tradition, hopefully spared. What do you think, Allie?
I love it. I want to be there when they roll Toomer's Corner. I just wanted to not be when they're playing Florida. That's on my bucket list. I think it's awesome. I love the quirky traditions of college football. There's some really crazy things out there, Toomer's Corner being one of them, and I think that it's awesome.
David?
Listen, there are 2 or 3 things that college sports have that professional sports don't. I think there's more angst involved in college sports, and in a good way. It can get bad at times, but they're really good, healthy angst. Florida State has healthy angst. I don't think we've crossed the line many times. We've just got a lot of angst, and it's good. It really is. It gets us passionate about something. Let's live with passion, okay, and tradition. And yeah, we're destroying a lot of it. There's no doubt. So all the tradition that we can cling to is awesome.
Be a great new name for a team, the Denver Angst or whatever. So all right. So we'll let Allie. I know we've kept you a long time, but you got to put the twins to bed. Or we got 5 more minutes.
We went to bed early because it's the first day of school tomorrow. So
that's right.
Yes. They're all asleep.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So here's my final one.
Go back to school. That's my favorite time of year.
The final one from me is golf. Okay.
Oh,
David, you and I have talked about this a lot. Today, Rory McIlroy was one of the countless players who did not attend last night's meeting with the PGA Tour Commissioner, Jay Monahan, instead opting for a workout. McIlroy reportedly entered the clubhouse as the meeting was wrapping up, was drenched in sweat, according to the AP. Okay, what we see here, David, there's a little bit of angst going on in the golf right now in the new system. What do you read from that?
Well, the commissioner of the PGA Tour is kind of like the commissioner of the Pac-12. I mean, could you blame one of their ADs or university presidents if they really didn't have a whole lot of time for the commissioner of the Pac-12? I mean, do you blame any of the players if they blow off the commissioner of the PGA Tour?
No, I do not.
No. So listen, besides Rory will eventually get an email or the memo and telling him what the deal is all about. What's the point of going to a meeting right now? They don't even know what the deal is.
Show of unity, which they don't have one. And by the way, there's another sport they're screwing up. What's happening to our sports out there? Crazy. All right, final thoughts from each of you as we get ready and count it down. Florida's practices seem to have gone well. We got game day coming up soon. The game in Utah is going to be an important one. As we sit here on, what's the date today? The 9th of August, not only, 3 weeks away from the opening game. Your thoughts, David, on as they go forward, what's ahead for football season?
Oh, I think it's going to be an awesome football season if you think about it. Last year of Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12, there's going to be a lot of oxygen and angst in that conference with 4 new members and then 2 outgoing. Obviously, the last year, the Pac-12. Listen, I'm just going to call it right now. If you believe in the sports gods, Oregon State will win the Pac-12 this year. They actually have the best team that they've probably had in 40 years. And I just hope that somehow, some way, Oregon State, who's going to be probably one of the 2 teams left without a major conference to go to, would love for them to win the Pac-12 and then be completely inappropriate in everything they say after the game. But I think it's going to be a phenomenal season. I really do. I think the SEC West is wide open. I don't think Georgia's going to go undefeated into the playoffs. I think somebody's going to get them either in Atlanta or maybe Tennessee upsets them, in late November in Knoxville. I'm really geeked up. The Big Ten's got 3 of the top 7 teams in the country. SEC's got 4 of the top 10. The Big 12's got 5 in the top 20. I am jacked for this year. I think it's going to be a phenomenal year, no matter how much the forces try to ruin the sport.
Interesting. And Allie, I don't know. I hear a lot of talk about Kentucky and Tennessee and all these teams in the East. Florida's picked 5th, whatever. I mean, look, they may be good, but I hear Kentucky every year. And Tennessee, what's Tennessee done, really? So I don't know. What do you think about what's going on in the East? The last year of the SEC East. And how do you feel about Georgia going undefeated?
So it makes me a little sad that it's the last year that we have divisions, although I do think we get some really cool games without divisions, the following year. I think if Florida can take care of business against Utah, that Tennessee game on September 16th in the swamp, 7 p.m. at night, that is going to be massive. And I think Florida can win it. I think, while I do think Tennessee is the more talented team at the moment, I think that we saw that, last season, if you looked at the season as a whole, I think that Florida's a monkey on their back. I think it's been a very long time since they've won in the swamp. And I think Florida needs that momentum going into it. If they lose to Utah, I think it's a lot harder to see a victory against Tennessee. But I think if they figure out a way to pull it off in Utah, obviously they'll win week 2 against McNeese State. I think they can beat Tennessee. As far as finishing 5th in the East, I mean, I like it. I like that they're telling us that Florida can't accomplish anything. I think it gives great bulletin board material for Billy Napier to use to motivate.
Angst.
Causes some angst. I think it's very easy to paint the us against the world. I think it's a lot harder when everybody says you're going to go undefeated or you're going to win, and they set those expectations high. So I think it's a great place for Florida to be. I don't think they win the East, but I don't think they finish 5th either. And I think David's right. I don't know that I think Georgia runs the table. And I do think Florida pulls off at least one upset this year. I'm not saying they're going to beat Georgia, but I think out of the 5 teams that they're for sure not going to be favored against, talking about Utah, LSU, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida State, they're going to win at least one of those.
I think 2. That's what I pick, but we'll see. Listen, great stuff from David and from Allie. Brenden, you want to add anything before we take it off?
No, I agree with the both of them, but I after seeing Florida at the open practice, and we were watching highlights earlier from today, I just, you get a sense, like it's like, when you go down to the stable before a big race and you see a horse that's about to run. I feel like I started out thinking Florida was just going to be much like they were in the orange and blue game, but I was wrong about, sort of what that represented. I feel like Florida is a dark horse. I think that's where you want to be. I think it's where you want to play from. I think everyone's expecting you not to be good. I think Georgia's way over their raisins. They've had a lot of problems, a lot of off the field problems, as everyone knows. I think it's hard in the SEC to stay on top. I think, Tennessee's got to play a really raucous, tough game. I've been to that stadium in Utah. I don't think they're going to be that great. Their quarterback's, questionable. We don't even know if he's going to be healthy. I think you go in there, if you can go in there and blow them out, like Allie said, you come out, I think you can beat Tennessee. I think you can have a big win. And, I actually think Georgia could be a big question mark. Anything can happen in sports, but in college sports with the young mentality, you just don't know what's going to happen until you get a couple games out there. And I feel like Billy's got these guys going in the right direction. I feel like Florida is going to finish maybe 8-9 wins. I feel like are going to get 2 of those big ones. And that's just how I feel. And the more I see footage from practices, the more I start to feel more of that.
All right, be careful, Moulton. I'll get after you here in a minute.
That's all right.
Start pumping too much sunshine.
Allie brought up something, though. I mean, don't you think, guys, that if we're going to have 16 to 20 to possibly even 24 team conferences, aren't we going to have to go back to divisions? I know the intent is to eliminate the divisions. To me, how do you have an 18, 20 team league from top to bottom? I mean, to me, I think they may have 1 or 2 years without divisions. I have a feeling by the time we get to a 12-team playoff, we're going to have to go back to north, south, east, west in these.
David, you're stealing my thunder, buddy. You're taking from my playbook. Remember, I was the oracle who said 3 years ago this is going to happen. 30 years ago, this is going to happen. These super conferences, and you're right. The one thing you can save if you got these gigantic conferences, is you have division play. It also spares you on geography a little bit. It's absolutely what they have to do. I agree, don't you, Allie? Divisional play.
I think they're going to have to go back to divisions. Think about, you're going to have some teams that don't even have but 1 or 2 common opponents. We actually see that next year in the SEC schedule. Texas and Oklahoma's only common opponent is each other. And I know that's by design so that they play as many SEC teams as possible. But eventually they're going to have to go back to divisions, because I don't know how they're going to determine who moves forward, who won, when there's not enough common opponents.
Yeah, play it down. Have their division like they used to in basketball, region, and play it down. Good stuff, David. Good stuff, Allie. Thank you very, very much, guys. We'll talk to you again next week. Sweet and sour. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right,
hey,
Brenden,
buddy. Before we go, I got
to tell you about our friends at RenStar too. But go ahead.
Well, all right. Well, go ahead. I got because we got a young fan of yours that stayed up late.
Well, tell her to wait. We want to do this.
He's got school coming up. We want to get it done.
I just need to get paid commercially, and right here with our friends at RenStar who do so much good stuff for us, and I can't wait to talk to Miss Alice. Just remember that RenStar Medical Research is a terrific downtown advocate supporter of this town. Sports sponsored this show for many years. They also have a way of taking care of our health that we're thankful for. They have a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility. Renstar Medical Research brings cutting-edge clinical research trials to Ocala in areas like Alzheimer's, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, dementia, migraine, fibromyalgia, and many other things that affect us in our community. You can be a part of this. If you want to go to renstar.net, sign up. If you qualify, you may get paid some for your travel and time and be a part of the research trials that are going on. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today.
Oh, we nailed it.
Not really, but we
come on.
Is Alice there? Is Alice?
No, she's not with us. She said she made something for us.
Let's see it.
For you. Let's see. I tried to load it. I had some internet.
Now, this is Alice, and look at that. Oh, yes. All right. She absolutely is the president of Mr. Buddy's fan club, and she's also my critic. I said, Alice, tell me when I did bad and when I did good. It's a great picture there. It's got her book. Looking beautiful, honey. Love your tiara you got there.
Great. Thanks cute as could be right there. Alice is one of our business development manager. I always get it wrong because me and business stuff, buddy. But Joe Blackburn, that's his beautiful daughter, Alice. And we want to say, Alice, there you go. Now you got to go to bed. And we'd love you.
And thanks, Joe, for your contributions to the show. Appreciate, folks. Good show. Thank you. Don't forget to tell them what to do about Brenden about signing up.
Okay, look, if you listen, you're on YouTube, you're watching it. Before you leave, smash the subscribe button, or just smash it, or just click it. Whatever. Subscribe. You'll get the notifications. If you don't, like some of our other members, get notifications. Turn those notifications on your phone. Come on now, settings, notifications. Figure it out. It's not hard. Google it. You're good. And if you like Buddy Martin as much as everyone else does around here, you need to go to this place called Gator Bait Media. It's Gator Bait Media. Oh, I had a better logo. Hold on, buddy. Gator Bait Media, GatorBaitMedia.com. Let's see if let's get this one. Let's show a little better one. There it is. GatorBaitMedia.com. It is great writers, great information. Sign up today. Get your subscription before the season starts. Go to GatorBaitMedia.com. Check out blog writers like Franz Beard, Buddy Martin, Kyle Curtis, Matt Corderaro, Lauren Meadows, even me, pictures by Chris Spears, and just a cast of thousands. So check it out. Go to GatorBaitMedia.com. Help support us. We got merch coming, all sorts of stuff. We're going to bring back this Gator Bait. Hey, thanks for all that stuff. So, yeah, that's it. We've done it again. Another one.
Thanks to our guest tonight, Allie Peak Wilbur.
Yeah.
Ben Troop, and David Moulton. Brenden, good night. I love you.
Good night, buddy. Love you too.